the president should finally accept the letter of resignation that was submitted by Sessions last May. There's no time limit on the letter. It can be accepted at any moment at the president's pleasure. Joining me now to talk about it is a terrific attorney, one of the best in the nation, Joe diGenova. He's a partner at the firm of diGenova and Tenzing. And Joe is a former U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia. He served as an independent counsel. And yes, he's quoted in my book, The Russia Hoax. Why? Because he's an outstanding lawyer, and he gets it. He understands this. Joe, thanks for being with us.
Oh, delighted to be with you, Greg, and congratulations on your book being #1 for the third week in the Grove. Richly deserved tribute.
Thanks very much. Let's talk for just a moment about Jeff Sessions. What do you think of Sessions as Attorney General?
Well, I think Jeff is a good man in the wrong job. He clearly has no command presence. He has eliminated himself from the central issue of this presidency. He has, by virtue of his recusing himself, which he didn't have to do in a counterintelligence investigation. This was not a criminal investigation when it started. One of the things that's very disappointing about him is that he had no plan for becoming Attorney General. He had no people to bring in with him. He had never met Rod Rosenstein until shortly before Rod was nominated by the president. Another terrible mistake. Of course, Rosenstein has been the central figure in the outrageous decision to appoint a special counsel. But Sessions should never have accepted the job of Attorney General. When you watch him function, you are watching basically an inanimate object. He's completely clueless. He doesn't know how to respond to things. His public speaking leaves so much to be desired. But again, his major failing was accepting the job and then once accepting it, hiding from all the important decisions. It's really quite remarkable that the people in the Obama administration and the FBI and the Department of Justice have gotten away with perhaps one of the greatest crimes in the history of our country.
What's also amazing to me, and I write about this extensively in the book, is that Jeff Sessions should never have recused himself. He cited a regulation that requires recusal in a criminal case, but at the time of his recusal, it was not a criminal case. It was a counterintelligence probe. It should have continued to have been handled by the FBI and the Department of Justice. And that is what angered President Trump, that this is a guy who intended all along to recuse himself. He admitted it in his testimony before Congress. And he betrayed the president by failing to tell the truth, to tell the president that he was going to recuse himself. But for that recusal, there would never have been a special counsel appointed.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt about that. And that is a failing of his. I was in Montgomery, Alabama last week giving a speech to a very large group of civic, business, and government leaders. And when I finished my remarks, I took extensive questions from the floor, and almost every single question dealt with Jeff Sessions and why in the world he's functioning the way he is. And they were extremely disappointed, and this is his home state, and it was a friendly crowd. I think your book actually does a phenomenal job of outlining the bad decisions that Sessions made all along the way. And it was quite obvious that he was, with no one around him from his group of people that he might have chosen to support him and assist him in being in his first days as Attorney General, he was left to the tender mercies of the career people in the department who were not Trumpers by any stretch of the imagination, and certainly Rod Rosenstein, who was, if anything, a never-Trumper. Really a complete failure of a cabinet position in the single most important area for this president. Truly a tragedy.
You know, Joe, I'm asked all the time, because I'm so critical of Jeff Sessions, and have demanded on more than one occasion that he, walk away from this and resign. But people say to me, so who should be the Attorney General? And I always say it should be somebody like Joe diGenova, which invites the question, Joe, why not you? So if you were asked to replace Jeff Sessions, would you say yes?
Well, anybody who gets a request from the president should always accept, absent the most extreme circumstances like physical health. But obviously, when the president asks for assistance, you give it to him. And no one should ever turn down the president unless it's absolutely physically essential that he or she do so.
So let me put the question to you again, because our communications broke up a little bit, and I want to make sure that I want to make sure I get the answer correctly. So if asked to be the next Attorney General, you would accept the position?
Oh, of course. Nobody could turn it down. It's the greatest job in the world.
And what would you then do?
Well, I think any new Attorney General is going to have to establish a line of command to set up the series of cases that have to be investigated. All the former intelligence officials who were involved in setting up a fake case against the President of the United States would have to be notified that their presence before a federal grand jury was going to be required. And that is, you'd have to do that. Unless you do that, then your presence is useless. Someone has to have an accounting through a grand jury process of the exoneration of Hillary Clinton, which was done illegally, and the attempt to frame Donald Trump, which remains, in my opinion, an ongoing criminal plot. And I just don't see how anybody cannot do that if they're made Attorney General. You simply must investigate both aspects of this incredible scheme.
So some of the
and here's the other thing. One of the reasons that's an absolute imperative is this guy John Huber that Rosenstein and Sessions appointed to do an investigation into all these things is actually, I think, a head fake. I think that investigation is a joke. I think it's a Potemkin village. One of the things that the Attorney General outlined was that he was going to investigate Uranium One, which was the illicit sale of 20% of the American enriched uranium to the Russians. Now, the key central figure in that case is Doug Campbell, who is a client of our firm, a pro bono client of our firm. He has never been interviewed by Huber in the entire time that Huber has since his appointment.
Right.
That's not an investigation. No. That's a joke.
Right. And just to our listeners, we're getting some interference. That's likely the NSA and the FBI listening into the conversation. But seriously, I was astonished to learn from the congressmen who were in the hearing this week. It was actually a deposition behind closed doors of Bruce Orr, the number 4 official at the Department of Justice, who was the intermediary, the contact, who was providing information to the FBI from Christopher Steele, who gave the phony dossier to the FBI, and now says, well, I told the FBI it wasn't credible. Great. So why are you giving it to them for their use? Why did you not say something? But at any rate, he has not been interviewed by John Huber, which tells me immediately that the appointment of John Huber, who is a U.S. attorney in Utah, of all places, where all of the witnesses are in Washington and the documents are in Washington, it tells me that Huber is nothing more than window dressing. This is, as you say, it's just a head fake. There really isn't a legitimate investigation of Comey and his Confederates.
I think all the evidence points to that conclusion. And just think about it. There is all the evidence is on the record that there were illegal leaks of highly classified NSA information to individuals who then led to the unmasking of individuals illegally and then the leaking of their names to the press. Those are all federal crimes, none of which, as far as we can tell from any publicly available evidence, is being investigated. Why isn't Samantha Powers being investigated for making more than 200 requests for unmasking, an unprecedented number of requests for a UN ambassador? What was her need to have that done? And she claims, according to her congressional testimony, that, quote, someone used her name to get those unmaskings. Well, if that's the case, who was it? And who's investigating it? And the answer is, if it's Huber, I have absolutely no faith whatsoever in this process. This is really, and this is why Jeff Sessions should resign. Your suggestion is the correct one. And by the way, if he doesn't resign after the election, I expect the president to ask for his resignation.
So it invites the question then, who will replace Jeff Sessions? You know, Sessions is finished. He just doesn't know it yet, which is consistent with his clueless behavior. But you also have to get rid of Rod Rosenstein at the same time, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Rosenstein is the Rasputin of this couple. Sessions is this sort of goofy wizard who can't, you know, he doesn't conduct magic anymore. Jeff is just so out of it and irrelevant to the conduct of the public's business. I mean, this Rotary Club performance of going and giving all these speeches about immigration and everything, those are, of course, very important subjects. But that misses the point. The point is, in the most important battle for this president, he is MIA. And it's got to be, Rosenstein has to go because, first of all, how he could possibly remain in charge of this case with the conflicts of interest that he has is just remarkable. It's just absolutely incredible. Plus, he's directly involved in Uranium One. There's another conflict. So is he supervising Huber? The conflicts for Rosenstein are endless. And if you believe Mueller that the firing of Comey was an obstruction of justice, then Rosenstein is the one who wrote the memo suggesting that he be fired.
Right.
So he's either a witness or a co-conspirator.
As I write in the book, it is dead set against federal regulations to be prosecutor and witness all rolled into one. As the federal judge T.S. Ellis said, has Rosenstein recused himself yet? And the judge was being facetious but serious. And I have talked to so many different lawyers and law professors about Rosenstein, and they're all completely mystified and confounded that this guy who has a mandatory recusal has not done so. So you heard it here first. Joe diGenova will take the position as Attorney General, if asked, upon the resignation or firing of Jeff Sessions, and will convene a grand jury to investigate the investigators, the law enforcers who became the lawbreakers. Joe, many, many thanks.